Well, that might be a fracture at ulna. I'm afraid you forfeit.
The most beloved golf comedy in American film history was almost a completely different movie. One that didn't star Bill Murray, barely featured Chevy Chase, and had the gopher as a minor background nuisance rather than a central character. What you know and love about Caddyshack? Almost none of it was planned. This is the story of a film built from chaos, improvised into existence by some of the most talented and volatile comedic minds of a generation, on a golf course in Florida, in the summer heat, during one of the most chemically adventurous productions in Hollywood history. It made $60 million against a budget of under $6 million. It launched careers, it became a cultural landmark, and the man who wrote it never got to see any of that happen. 12 hidden details today. Some will make you see the film in a completely different light. One of them will break your heart. And the one we close on is the reason this specific comedy, not Animal House, not Stripes, not Ghostbusters, is the one that endures in the specific way it does. Let's count it down. 12. The film that was originally about the caddies. The origin of Caddyshack is genuinely personal in a way that the finished film doesn't entirely communicate, and understanding it changes how you read the whole thing. Brian Doyle Murray, older brother of Bill Murray, spent his teenage years as a caddy at Indian Hill Country Club in Winnetka, Illinois. So did Bill. The Murray brothers both carried bags for wealthy club members across the course, learning early what it felt like to exist at the edge of a world you weren't entirely welcome inside. They were good enough at their jobs to get close to the members, but they were never members. They were the help. They saw everything. They were invisible. Brian eventually teamed up with Harold Ramis and Douglas Kenney, the creative genius behind National Lampoon magazine, co-writer of Animal House, to turn those caddy years into a screenplay. The pitch to the studio was simple: Animal House, but on a golf course. The early script was ambitious and substantial, reportedly over 200 pages, and it centered heavily on Danny Noonan, the college-bound caddy trying to win a scholarship.
He was cheating. Nobody likes a tattletale.
As the emotional heart of the story. Then the cameras started rolling, and everything changed. Rodney Dangerfield arrived on set and improvised lines so funny they couldn't be left on the cutting room floor. Chevy Chase made Ty Webb something stranger and more interesting than the script suggested. Bill Murray, who had been given a small role with almost no dialogue, started doing things with the character of Carl Spackler that nobody had written. Within weeks, the filmmakers realized they had something better than what they'd planned. They had a genuine comedy ensemble. The problem was Danny Noonan. Actor Michael O'Keefe later described the moment of clarity with characteristic honesty. Harold, Doug, and Brian realized they had a potential modern-day Marx Brothers with Ted, Rodney, Chevy, and Bill, he said. And so that made me Gummo Marx. The original heart of the movie became a structural device that held the chaos together, and the chaos became the movie. 11. Carl Spackler didn't exist in the original script.
I'm looking at you. You wore green so you could hide.
This is the fact that should genuinely floor anyone who considers themselves a Caddyshack fan. The character that most people remember as the soul of the movie, the demented, gopher-obsessed, Cinderella-dreaming groundskeeper Carl Spackler, appeared nowhere in the original 200-page screenplay. Not a scene, not a line, not even a mention. Bill Murray was brought onto the production partly because the studio, after greenlighting the project, demanded stars. Chevy Chase was already attached. Murray was a natural addition given his Saturday Night Live fame. He was given a minor supporting role. And when he arrived on set and Harold Ramis explained the basic setup, a groundskeeper who was at war with a gopher destroying the course, Murray started building from scratch. The Cinderella story sequence, the monologue that every golfer and most non-golfers can quote from memory, the one where Carl narrates his own fantasy victory at the Masters while destroying the flowers, came from 2 lines of stage direction, just. Murray announces his own fantasy sports moment. That was it. Murray asked for 4 rows of chrysanthemums to destroy. He walked into the frame, started talking, and delivered one of the most quoted speeches in the history of American film comedy. Entirely improvised. No script, no rehearsal, just Bill Murray, some flowers, and the specific kind of creative freedom that first-time directors sometimes give their most talented cast members because they don't quite know how to stop them. Carl Spackler didn't exist until Murray invented him on a golf course in Florida. The most memorable character in the movie started as nobody. 10. Rodney Dangerfield had never made a film before. By 1979, Rodney Dangerfield was one of the most recognizable stand-up comedians in America. His persona, the eternal loser, the man for whom nothing goes right, the walking monument to indignity, was so perfectly developed that you could quote him in casual conversation and have people know exactly who you meant. He was a machine gun delivery comic who could pace a room better than almost anyone alive. He had almost no experience in front of a film camera. Caddyshack was, for all practical purposes, his first major film role. The difference between performing for a live audience and performing for a camera crew is not small. Stand-up responds to the room. Film acting is performed to a lens and then assembled in an editing room weeks later. The pacing is different. The feedback is different. The relationship between the comedian and the reaction is completely different. Harold Ramis understood this immediately and adapted. When it came time to film Dangerfield's first scene, the arrival of Al Chervik in the pro golf shop, Ramis called action 3 times. All 3 times, Dangerfield stood completely still. He simply didn't recognize the word as directed at him in the way it would be on a film set. It didn't compute. So Ramis stopped saying, action. Instead, he said, "Okay, Rodney, now do your bit." Dangerfield proceeded to deliver a flawless take, including the improvised line about the free bowl of soup that went in as written. From that point forward, for the entire production, Harold Ramis, first-time director, Harvard-educated comedy writer, never once said the word action to Rodney Dangerfield. He simply told him when it was time to do his bit. The result was a performance so purely itself, so obviously unrehearsed and unfiltered, that it remains one of the most watchable things in the movie 45 years later. Because it wasn't acting. It was Rodney Dangerfield, being Rodney Dangerfield, on a golf course in Florida, with a camera pointed at him and a director who had the wisdom to just get out of the way. 9. Chase and Murray shared one scene, and it ended a feud.
Danny, this isn't Russia. Is this Russia? This isn't Russia, is it?
The backstory between Chevy Chase and Bill Murray is one of the more genuinely dramatic interpersonal conflicts in the history of Saturday Night Live, which is saying something, given the show's history of interpersonal conflicts. Chase had been one of SNL's original cast members and one of its biggest early breakout stars. He left after season 2. Murray was brought in as his replacement in January 1977. The transition was not smooth. The 2 men reportedly had a significant physical altercation before a live taping that became one of the most discussed incidents in the show's history. By the time Caddyshack went into production in fall 1979, they were not close. Harold Ramis had written the film in a way that kept them entirely separate. Their characters operated in different parts of the story. There was not a single scene in the entire original screenplay where Ty Webb and Carl Spackler shared a frame. Whether this was intentional conflict management or just the natural architecture of the parallel storylines, the effect was the same. The 2 biggest names on the production didn't need to interact. Then executive producer John Peters noticed. He told Ramis to fix it. "You have Chevy Chase and Bill Murray on the same movie, and they don't say a single word to each other? Fix it." Ramis, Murray, and Chase sat down together over lunch. They brainstormed. They came up with the idea of the cabin scene, the deeply strange, genuinely funny sequence where Ty Webb wanders into Carl's groundskeeper's shack and the 2 of them share a joint and have a conversation that goes absolutely nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. The scene is heavily improvised, and the strange warmth in it, the genuine ease between the 2 men, reportedly came from the process of making it together. Whatever animosity existed between them thawed, at least partially, in that shack on the golf course in Davie, Florida. They had found, through the work, what they couldn't find any other way. It's one scene. It's deeply weird. And without it, 2 of the funniest people of their generation would have passed within feet of each other for 11 weeks without ever actually meeting. If this kind of backstory is what you're after, the real story behind the films everyone quotes but nobody fully knows, subscribe. This is what we do every week. 8. They blew up a golf course without asking. The climactic final sequence of Caddyshack involves an explosion, a large one, on a golf course. The production team needed to demolish a significant section of the course for the scene where Carl finally detonates his gopher elimination system, causing the entire 18th hole to crater dramatically. The club that hosted the production, Rolling Hills Golf Club in Davie, Florida, had agreed to let the film shoot on their course. They had not agreed to have their course blown up, so the production built a separate hill from scratch specifically for the explosion to avoid destroying actual club property. Then the pyrotechnic team used significantly more explosives than the scene required. The explosion was, by multiple accounts, enormous, several times larger than what anyone had anticipated. Commercial aircraft flying over the area at altitude reportedly detected the blast and called it in, uncertain whether a plane had gone down somewhere near Fort Lauderdale. Pilots were filing reports. The FAA was briefly involved. Back on the ground, the production crew had a problem. The club's management was not immediately aware of what had happened. The production team had, according to some accounts, arranged for food and beverages to keep the club's key staff occupied on a different part of the property during the shoot. By the time the smoke cleared and the FAA calls started coming in, the scene was in the can. A golf course in Florida, a pyrotechnics crew with ambitions, pilots thinking they'd witnessed a plane crash, and the scene made it into the movie looking exactly as chaotic as it actually was. 7. The gopher required a puppeteer, malfunctioned constantly, and made dolphin noises. The gopher that drove Carl Spackler to the edge of sanity across the entire film was, on set, driving the production equally insane, but for completely different reasons. The animatronic gopher was operated by a skilled puppeteer named Pat Brymer, who had worked on the Banana Splits and H.R. Pufnstuf with creators Sid and Marty Krofft, and who would go on to work on Team America, World Police, and multiple other productions over his career. The puppet's mechanics were genuinely impressive for 1979, capable of a range of expressive movements. They were also fragile, temperamental, and prone to malfunction at exactly the wrong moments. Scenes that required the gopher to perform reliably were often shot multiple times. Not because the performers were off, but because the puppet wasn't cooperating. The mechanical elements would seize or slip. The expressions would go wrong. What should have been quick shots sometimes required significant time to capture when the gopher's mechanics were misbehaving.
Come to Carl, Vermin, come to Carl.
And then there was the sound. The specific vocalizations of the gopher, those odd, squeaky, unsettling little noises that accompany the creature's movements, were not created by any standard sound effect. They were made by a dolphin. Dolphin vocalizations were slowed down, pitch shifted, and processed into the gopher's sonic signature, giving the animal a quality of intelligence that was somehow both funny and subtly unnerving. The gopher's famous closing dance to Kenny Loggins' "I'm All Right," the image that closes the film, the moment that turned the creature into an icon, was the result of Brymer's specific puppetry work capturing a particular looseness of movement that felt like genuine celebration. Pat Brymer died in 2013. The gopher outlived the man who gave it life by over a decade on home video and cable reruns. 6. Hurricane David almost ended the production. The production of Caddyshack was not without genuine external drama. In September 1979, while the cast and crew were working their way through the shooting schedule at Rolling Hills Golf Club in Davie, Florida, Hurricane David made landfall nearby. David was not a minor storm. It had been devastating earlier in its path, causing significant destruction across the Caribbean. And while it had weakened somewhat by the time it reached Florida, it was still sufficient to halt production entirely and cause real logistical disruption. Cast and crew had to shelter. Equipment had to be secured. The shoot went on hold. The production eventually resumed, but the hurricane's passage through the area had left the course in a condition that required attention before filming could continue. Florida in late summer and fall is not ideal weather territory for outdoor film shoots in the best of circumstances, and 1979 delivered conditions that tested the production's resilience at regular intervals. The hurricane, combined with the heat, the creative chaos of an improvisation-heavy ensemble shoot, and a cast that was, by many accounts, enthusiastically enjoying the social possibilities of being in a resort area with significant latitude. All of it combined to make the 11-week production something that its participants have described, variously, as both the most fun and most exhausting experience of their professional lives. Michael O'Keefe later said the wrap party felt anticlimactic, not because it was low-key, but because the entire production had essentially been a 6-week party that burned everyone out before they got to the actual party. 5. Ted Knight was terrified of being typecast and ended up more iconic for it. Ted Knight was, by 1979, one of the most recognized faces in American television. His portrayal of the pompous, preening anchorman Ted Baxter on The Mary Tyler Moore Show had run for 7 years and made him one of the most Emmy-awarded performers in the country. He was beloved, he was respected, and he was deeply concerned about being remembered for only one thing. Knight was reportedly anxious about typecasting in a specific way. Ted Baxter was a buffoon, a magnificently performed buffoon, but a buffoon nonetheless. When the role of Judge Smails was offered to him, another pompous authority figure, another blowhard whose dignity is perpetually shattered by the world around him, there were legitimate questions about whether this was the right move. He took the role, and what he built with it was something distinctly different from Ted Baxter, even if the architectural DNA was familiar. Judge Smails is not a buffoon who doesn't know he's a buffoon. He's a man who genuinely believes in his own importance, and that conviction in Knight's hands gave the character a real menace underneath the comedy. When Smails loses his composure, when he sputters and fumes and threatens people with the full weight of his institutional authority, it lands because Knight made you believe Smails actually had that authority in his own mind. And here is the irony that history has delivered. Ted Baxter is remembered fondly. Judge Smails is remembered with something close to reverence. The role Knight worried would trap him in a typecasting box became, for comedy fans, one of the defining comic villain performances in the history of American film. Caddyshack was the last film Ted Knight made. He died in 1986 from cancer at 62. Judge Smails was his goodbye. 4. The reviews were terrible, and the film became a classic.
You died on your deathbed.
Anyway, when Caddyshack opened on July 25, 1980, the critical reception was somewhere between lukewarm and hostile. Reviewers found it shapeless, incoherent, too reliant on improvisation, and lacking the structural coherence that would make it a real film, rather than a series of comedy sketches loosely draped around a golf course. They were not wrong, strictly speaking. The film has no traditional 3-act structure. The plot involving Danny Noonan's scholarship is present but not driving. Characters disappear for long stretches and then return as if no time has passed. The tonal range is enormous, from genuinely sweet moments to lowbrow, gross-out comedy to something almost surrealist in the Murray sequences. Harold Ramis himself, looking back, described it as a $6 million scholarship to film school. He knew what it was, a first-time director learning on the job, with more comedy talent on set than he knew how to fully contain, producing something that was undeniably entertaining, but equally undeniably unpolished. The audiences came anyway. The film made $60 million. And then something happened in the years after release that critics hadn't predicted. The film got funnier. It became a repeat viewing experience rather than a theatrical event. On cable, on VHS, in dorm rooms and living rooms and golf clubhouses, individual scenes became landmarks. Individual lines became vocabulary. The gopher became an icon. What the reviews called shapeless, audiences discovered was rewatchable. The lack of a tight plot meant you could dip in anywhere and find something funny. The episodic quality that bothered critics in 1980 became, on home video, an asset. You could watch the Cinderella speech, rewind it, watch it again, and not feel like you'd missed anything before or after it. The critics weren't wrong. They were just reviewing the wrong version of the movie. The version that mattered was the one you watched for the 3rd time on a Saturday afternoon. 3. The film's co-writer never got to see it become a classic.
I don't think so,
Right in,
Carl.
just right back.
If I could just borrow a wedge or something and get right.
And here is where the story turns. Douglas Kenney co-wrote Caddyshack alongside Harold Ramis and Brian Doyle Murray. He was also one of the film's producers. Before Caddyshack, he had co-founded National Lampoon magazine in 1970 and co-written Animal House in 1978, one of the most commercially successful comedies in the history of cinema. He was, by any measure, one of the most influential comic minds of his generation. When Caddyshack opened to mixed reviews in July 1980, Kenney fell apart. He had been struggling privately for some time. The pressures of the production, the substance use that had escalated significantly during the shoot, the specific kind of self-doubt that afflicts people who are very funny and very intelligent and therefore very good at constructing arguments for why nothing they've made is good enough. He became deeply depressed. At a press conference, he verbally abused reporters. His friends became frightened. Chevy Chase, who was among Kenney's closest friends, took him to Hawaii, hoping the calm environment would help. They spent time at a tennis camp in California first, then Hawaii. Chase had to leave for a work commitment. Kenney's girlfriend came and then returned to Los Angeles. On August 27, 1980, 33 days after Caddyshack opened, Kenney fell from a cliff at the Hanapepe Valley Lookout on the island of Kauai. He was 33 years old. His death was ruled accidental. Harold Ramis said later, with the specific kind of devastating gallows humor that Kenney himself would have appreciated. Doug probably fell while he was looking for a place to jump. The reviews that had depressed him so profoundly were, by the time his body was found, already becoming irrelevant. The film was making money. The audiences were finding it funny. The word of mouth was building. The classic was assembling itself in the weeks after his death. Chevy Chase later told interviewers that he wished Doug could have seen what became of the film, that he had gone to a medium seeking some kind of closure, that he needed to believe it had been an accident. Douglas Kenney never knew that Caddyshack was going to be remembered. He died thinking it was a failure. It was the furthest thing from the truth. 2. The film that accidentally defined a generation's relationship to golf.
Sure. We're really clubbing it. Yeah. We better start moving.
Here's something that doesn't get said often enough. Before Caddyshack, golf had a specific cultural image in America. It was the game of Judge Smails, of country clubs and membership fees and dress codes and the carefully maintained social hierarchies that decided who was welcome and who was carrying the bags. Caddyshack didn't exactly destroy that image, but it held it up to the light in a way that let everyone see through it, and then it laughed at what it saw. The film's fundamental tension, the slobs versus the snobs, the caddies and the groundskeepers against the entitled membership, is not subtle. Carl Spackler wages his war on the gopher on the same manicured grounds where Judge Smails enforces his social order. Al Chervik's nouveau riche vulgarity offends the establishment not because he's worse than them, but because he has the money to force them to tolerate him. Ty Webb floats above all of it with a zen indifference that is its own form of mockery. The film argued, without ever being preachy about it, that the people keeping the course beautiful were more interesting than the people playing on it, that the caddies who carried the bags had more vitality than the members whose bags they were carrying, that the institutional gravity of Bushwood Country Club was one good gopher away from total collapse. Golf's own relationship with Caddyshack has become one of the stranger cultural negotiations in sport history. The Professional Golfers Association and country clubs across America have embraced the film, quoted it, screened it, celebrated it, all while the film is fundamentally making fun of exactly the culture those institutions represent. The joke is on the Judge Smailses of the world, and the Judge Smailses love it. 1. What the film was actually about. Underneath all of it, underneath Carl's war with the gopher, underneath Rodney Dangerfield's improvised one-liners, underneath the baby Ruth in the pool and the dancing gopher and the explosion that panicked the FAA. Caddyshack is a film about people who don't belong trying to exist in spaces that weren't built for them. Brian Doyle Murray and Bill Murray caddied at Indian Hill Country Club in Winnetka as teenagers. They were allowed in because they were useful. They saw the golf course as workers, not players. They understood at a cellular level what it felt like to be adjacent to privilege without access to it. They carried the bags. They knew which members were kind and which were condescending, and which ones tipped well and which ones treated them like furniture. That experience is in every frame of the film. Danny Noonan is trying to use the scholarship program to extract himself from a life where opportunity is controlled by people like Judge Smales. Carl Spackler has found his corner of the world, the groundskeeper shack, the gopher war, the private fantasy of his Cinderella moment at the Masters, and defended it against everything. Al Chervik has the money to force his way in and is having the time of his life watching the establishment fume about it. Ty Webb has already seen through the whole thing and is trying to explain it to anyone who will listen. The film is funny because the comedy is real. The conflict between who has access and who doesn't, between who gets the scholarship and who keeps carrying the bags, between the people who built the course and the people who own it. That conflict was true in 1980, and it's still true now. Caddyshack made $60 million. It became the kind of film that gets quoted at actual country clubs by actual members who are, in some cases, exactly the people the film is laughing at.
Music is a violation of my...
That's either the greatest joke in the history of American comedy, or it's proof that the film was right. The people who actually matter are too busy having a good time to explain it to anyone. Douglas Kenney didn't live to see any of it, but he saw it clearly enough when he wrote it to put it all on the page. The film he thought was a failure became the thing he'll always be remembered for. That's not a tragedy. That's a Cinderella story. 12 hidden details, one film. And the question I want to put to you, is Caddyshack actually a great film? Or is it a collection of great moments that we've convinced ourselves into calling a great film? There is no safe answer, and I genuinely want to know where you land. Subscribe for more of this. We'll be back next week.